I forgot. Jordan said Romans 3:29-30. I forgot to look at this passage. So Roman Catholics think this is going to prove that Muslims, Christians, Jews all worship the same God. Whereas boasting, a man is justified by faith apart from the deeds of the law. Is he the God of the Jews only? Is he not also the God of the Gentiles? Since there's one God who justifies the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through faith, I mean, Paul is obviously talking about salvation in Christ. Justification is baptism. It's being baptized into Christ. This is not saying that the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, the Hindus, the Sikhs all have one God because he's the God of all. That's I mean, I'm trying to be rude to you, but like that's so stupid.
And also want to add too, when I was talking to Garby, he had this really great point. It was Porphyry was having a conversation with, I can't remember who it was, but Porphyry said, the question isn't, what is God, but is God Lord? And then I thought about, I'm like, that's a really profound.
Yeah, it's a question of worship and adoration.
Yes. So, and the other thing too is that verse in Romans just say there's one Lord that lords over the universe, and that doesn't mean, well, then everybody worships him.
Exactly.
Like, it's very really
yeah,
silly.
Paul is saying in Romans 1 that there's only one God, and he's still the Lord even of the pagan nations that have never heard of him. But that doesn't mean that they're saved because they're pagans and that they accidentally worship him. What does it say in 1 John 2? Whoever denies the Son, Muslims and Arians, does not have the Father. So, and I also think that a lot of the Roman Catholics, and I don't mean this to be rude, but honestly, my experience, many of them have not actually debated Muslims. They don't know that Muslims explicitly reject that Allah is Father.
And how can you worship something without having faith? Which is what the position implies, right?
Well, they'll say, well, but it's faith in the one God. It is not faith in the one God. The one God is the Father and his Son and Spirit. That's the Christian position. Yeah, but they're accidentally... No, it's not accidental. You understand, Islam is predicated on rejecting explicitly the Trinity in the Quran and the deed of Christ, and that Allah is Father, and that Allah is Spirit. Did you know that they don't believe that Allah is Spirit either? So, what's the key attribute? He's the creator. Oh, okay. So if I just say that any being is the creator, L. Ron Hubbard is the creator. So I worship the one God now? This is so dumb. I cannot believe when John in 1 John 2 is explicitly saying that if you reject the Son, you lose the Father. These idiots, to save this ridiculous, corrupt, papal idolatry system, will go to all lengths to rescue this idiot system. It's so insane to me. It's an idol. It's an idol. And by the way, I can keep going, but I don't want to spill all of my best arguments out here, because I've got many, many, many more. And I'm not just talking about scripture text. Okay? I've gone deep into medieval Roman Catholic councils this week, of which I knew about for a long time. But, I mean, I think an easy disqualifier here is to just show, what did the Roman Catholic Church say about Islam in the Middle Ages, dogmatically? What does it say about Islam right now? And if that's a flat-out contradiction between multiple ecumenical councils, I've done my job. Father Deacon can go in and perfectly, with precision, dissect the philosophical linguistic argumentation. All I have to do is show that you've contradicted dogmatically. Gainerzilla, $5. If a Roman Catholic says that we have efficacious sacraments, why do we even need to be papists? You could make this argument, although I think they're going to say that you're deficient. So even though you have the grace of the sacraments, your church is lacking this visible earthly headship that gives you certitude and guidance. Really? Has it been doing very good giving certitude and guidance for the last 50, 60 years?
And they'll also say schism's a sin.
Yeah, exactly. Now, technically, though, you're correct, because according to the canons of Vatican I, right here, which I have right here in my hand. Dogmatic canons and decrees of Trent and Vatican I. It's actually this is where they're inconsistent, by the way, to your point Gainerzilla. Vatican I says, if you reject the teaching of Vatican I, you excommunicate yourself and are damned. So it actually says that the Eastern schismatics lose their salvation and are damned because they're separating themselves from the successor to Peter. So actually, you're technically correct that they have to make a choice here. They either have to say, you guys are cool, you got grace in the sacraments, and you don't really need us, or even though our sacraments are valid, we've surrendered and rejected all of that grace because of the impediment to that grace, which is the sin of schism and heresy. But they're not consistent. In fact, it's the See of Peter remains free and ever free from all blemish of error, according to the divine promise. I have prayed for you, Peter, that your faith fail not. Confirm your brethren. This gift, then, of truth and never failing faith was conferred by heaven itself upon Peter and his successors to this chair, that they might perform this office over the entire flock of Christ, to keep it perfect, to keep it away from all poison, and that the occasion of schism being removed, the whole church might be kept one. So if you're not part of that union with the successor to Peter, you're in schism. And then Vatican I ends with this: if anyone contradict this definition of Vatican I, let him be anathema. So they're not following Vatican I because we're supposed to be anathema for not believing in Vatican I's definition of papal supremacy. But wait a minute. Turns out most of the trads actually reject what Vatican I says about the perfection of the papacy in terms of preserving the doctrines and the dogmas, so they would also fall under that. In fact, the Greeks are identified, the Orthodox are identified explicitly right here as the schismatics, as it says the Greeks, right there. One reason, by the way, that we are encountering a lot of this difficulty is that for a long time it was not actually that easy to get a hold of what all Vatican I actually taught. Even when I was a trad, it was not that easy to, like in, say, in 2005, 6, 7, it was kind of difficult to find some of this stuff. And you had to go, to like a traditional Catholic chapel, actually, to get 10 books, publications, or order them online. And so I don't even know if this is still in print. It might not be in print. I don't know. But, the classic trad publisher, for those who don't know, is Tan Books. And Tan would print all this stuff. And so you'd have to get, Tan books to get a hold of these things. Over time, however, a lot of this stuff has kind of appeared on the internet. But even in the case of what's in the Tan, I'm not sure that even everything that's in the Tan Books text is actually on papal encyclicals. So if we go to Vatican I, and if we look up the final closing statement of Vatican I according to the Tan Books version, and it says that you're damned if you don't accept Vatican I. I'm not even sure. I mean, it may be on here. I just don't recall. Let's see if it's on here. Yeah, it is on here. So the very last statement of Vatican I is right there. If you do not accept Vatican I, including Vatican I's teaching on the papacy, you're damned. You're anathema. You're out of the church. Get out of here. Now, where are the Roman Catholics when... Now, I mean, to be fair, actually, the trad cats are more consistent on this. Because the trad cats will admit that you have valid sacraments and the grace is present. But if they're consistent trad cats, they'll say, but your sin of schism is preventing you from actually getting the grace. So, but again, to Jordan's question, I mean, come on, man. I mean, I'm not making fun of you, but it's like Paul is talking about justification and how we're saved, and it's not saying that God is the God of Islam. So there's they're interjecting this idea that because it says that he is the God of the Gentiles. Oh well, then he's the God of Hindu polytheism too, right? No, the God of the people, not the religion. Do people not know? I'm not trying to be rude to you, but it's like, you don't know grammar? I mean, remember when I showed you, Father Deacon, did you see John Paul II praying for Islam?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know how many Roman Catholics are so just driving me crazy? Saying, so you're saying we shouldn't pray for Muslims? Are you serious? Praying for Muslims is not the same thing as saying, I hope God protects the false religion of Islam.
Yeah, exactly.
This is so stupid. I mean, I can't believe some of the stuff that, I mean, I don't know. People are just, it's the fluoride, I guess, in the water. I don't know. Steve the Turd, $10. My girlfriend is Seventh-day Adventist. Can you refute it? So we keep getting this question. Like, guys, any of the arguments against the cults or new divine revelations, I did multiple multi-hour talks on this idea of new divine revelation. That will, if you can convey this to your girlfriend, that refutes Islam, Mormonism, and Seventh-day Adventism. I mean, you guys understand, Ellen White believes she's a prophet. The founder of Seventh-day Adventism is a woman who thinks that she has a charismatic gift of prophecy. Well, if there's no new prophets, then that's the whole religion of SDA is gone. And if you don't want to go into all that, just look up any of these clips where I'm refuting or arguing against charismaticism. Here's tons of them. Here's one argument that ends Islam, Mormonism, charismaticism, and Seventh-day Adventism, a video I made 2 months ago, right here. This is a 30-minute clip where we walk through showing that there's no new public divine revelations. Okay, we're not getting, there's no new book of the Apostle Ellen White that we add to the Bible. It's not happening. There's no new, and look, all the cults are this. Ellen White's book, what's it called? The Great Expectations, or the Great Plan, whatever her book's called. It's all the same stuff, man. Don't you guys get it? It's like cults just do the same thing. What's it called? I'm trying to remember her book that she wrote. The Great Controversy, that's it. Now, she might not think that her book is equal to the Bible, but she believes that she's a prophetess with the gift of prophecy to help, restore the church. All these restoration movements are automatically canceled out if there are no new restoration, or if there are no new prophets. It's that simple. G26, $10. That goofball Trent said the other day on their stream that King David didn't worship Jesus. Oh, good. That's awesome. So if we've got these guys literally admitting that the Old Testament doesn't teach theophanies, then it's over. Father Deacon, I know you listened to that stream. Did you recall him saying that?
I made a note. I can't remember. I think I made a note that I think he said that. Let's see. But yeah. Oh,
well, then it's over for them. I mean, guys, I hope you guys understand this. It's the same as the Trent Horn debate. Like, this is where natural theology leads you. What?
I knew they were going to argue this because they're going to be consistent and say, just like Trent Horn, like, well, no, they didn't worship the Trinity. But it's so great. I was just having a conversation with a Roman Catholic philosophy professor I work with too. Interesting enough, he says, I'm leaning more towards your side because of this issue, but I can see that even he was struggling. He had asked, did the ancient Hebrews in the Old Testament worship the Trinity? I'm
yes.
like, yeah, St. Paul makes this argument.
Right.
And that I said, obviously, in somewhat of a veiled way and not revealed in the details that you see in the New Testament and a Nicene Creed or something like that. But, like, yeah, of course they did. But the fact that was puzzling to him means I think they really do ingrain this in Roman Catholicism, that it's that the Jews, the ancient Hebrews, didn't worship the Trinity. They had this kind of Aristotelian natural theology God or something that I don't know. What do you think? You remember this from Trent Horn's debate, right?
I mean, let's be honest here. I'm just going to be straight up with. They're ignorant of the Bible. They don't know the Scriptures. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally the debate that Jesus has with the Pharisees in John 5-9, and we're on the side of Jesus, and they're arguing the Pharisee nonsense. This is how stupid this is. I mean, imagine, it's like, you haven't read John 5? I mean, it's like, do not think that I will accuse you to Moses, the one in whom you trust. If you believe Moses, you would believe me, for Moses wrote about me. But if you don't believe his writings, how will you believe my words? John 8.
Well, you see, Moses was writing about him, but he didn't know he was writing about him.
Oh, who did Moses eat with on the mountain in the book of Exodus?
Yes.
Do you eat with God the Father, or do you eat with his angel messenger, the one who has Yahweh's name in him? Jesus says.
Another professor too that was blown away is when I showed him the icon of the burning bush. I'm like, who do you think was in the burning bush?
Well, can I answer your question from Jesus himself?
Yes, please. I'm setting it up.
How do you know Jesus, or how do you know Abraham? You are not 50 years old, and yet you know him. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day and saw it was glad. Saw it when it was glad. You're not 50. How did you see Abraham? Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. I am, Exodus 3, the bush. I am. Abraham rejoiced to see my day, saw it was glad. He believed in me. Imagine being a Roman Catholic and not knowing this. This is insane to me. Now, this is the Muslim argument. They're in the same position as the Muslims. All I have to do is repeat my opening statement to Daniel Hakikachu and prove, by the way, that rabbinic philosophy and theology nowadays admits that Old Testament and New Testament era Hebrew peoples were not Unitarian, monolithically. That's Boyarin, that's Siegel, that's Schaeffer, and one more of the texts. I forget the other Jewish guy, but that's basically multiple modern Jewish scholars. Guys, you guys remember the Daniel debate, right? It's the same debate. Why are we having, as Orthodox Christians, having to debate with supposed Christians the same points that we debated with Muslims? What does this tell you about Roman Catholic academic philosophic theology? They don't know the Bible. And I don't mean that in a Protestant way. I mean that, like, it has nothing to do with Protestantism. Like, do you remember Jesus' argument with the woman at the well? You worship what you know not. And they're going to say, well, they know it if they worship it. Yeah, but he's saying you don't love and worship and adore God, even though you have a conceptual knowledge of God. Let's think about Jake the Muslim metaphysician, to make this very simple for you guys. Okay? Jake, as far as I can tell amongst the Muslims, because he spent so much time in our Discord getting reconnaissance, at least has probably the best understanding of the Muslims that are out there of the Orthodox doctrine of the Trinity. He's debated with Bo Branson. He's debated with me. He's been in the Discord talking to everybody from Perry to Father Deacon to tons of people over the last 5-6 years. Does could Jake the Muslim metaphysician accurately state, if he really wanted to, the basics of the Orthodox view of the Trinity? Of course. I think he could. Right? Now, he doesn't believe it, but could he state it? Yes. So does he know the Trinity? Well, if by know you mean, does he have an abstract conceptual knowledge? Yes. Does he worship and adore the Trinity? Of course not. So they're equivocating whether it's John 4 or whether it's Vatican II, because Vatican II says Muslims worship and adore the one God together with us Catholics. So it's equivocation, and Jake is a perfect example. Yes, of course, Jake has an abstract conceptual knowledge of God, but Vatican II says worship and adore, not just abstract. If Vatican II had restricted its language to Muslims have a conceptual, abstracted idea of God, but it's wrong, that would be one thing. It doesn't say that. And by the way, it never says they need to convert. It just says they worship and love, or they worship and adore the one God together with us, who is the creator and the sustainer, etc. What were you going to say, Father Deacon? Are you there?
The point about always equivocate.
That's why I keep and have been stressing forever that the problem with Vatican II is that it says they worship and adore. It doesn't just say they have a conceptual framework or an idea of God, like we would say about Jake, the Muslim metaphysician. And it's so funny because in all these passages that come up, whether it's John 8 or whether it's Acts 17 or whether it's John 4, the Roman Catholics literally come to the opposite conclusion of what the purpose of the passage is. It's kind of insane to me, because all they're doing is saying that, well, look, Paul is talking to them, and he's saying we all worship and love and adore the same God. You just got a couple things wrong. That's not what Paul's saying. That's not what Jesus is saying. Not at all. What does the woman at the well say in John 4? Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers, the Samaritans, who are the archetypal schismatics, they worship on this mountain. But you Jews say you got to do it in Jerusalem. Woman, believe me, the hour is coming, and now is. The hour is coming when you will neither worship on this mountain nor in Jerusalem the Father. You worship what you don't know. Imagine being a Roman Catholic and spending all of your time and effort and energy to construe this passage to mean, no, but they actually do know. It blows my mind that what we're dealing with. The point of the passage is that she lost the worship of the Father and that salvific pipeline because the schismatic Samaritans don't have the love of the Father. They lost it. That's why Jesus says salvation is of the Jews. You worship what you don't know. We worship what we do know. Is this not clear? But he says that she knew it. Yes, but not a salvific knowing. That's the point of the passage. Two different uses of the word knowing. You have some conception of this thing, but it's not a love pipeline channel that gets you anywhere. It's not salvific. Hence Jesus saying salvation is of the Jews, not of the Samaritans. It could not be any clearer to refute this nonsense. And by the way, just wait until we get into the medieval Roman Catholic councils on the Muslims. Just wait. And if they think that the Old Testament saints don't worship Jesus, excuse me? What ignorance. No, do you not know that? What does Jesus say to the Pharisees? It's literally the argument Jesus has with the Pharisees. Do you not know the scriptures? What does Peter say about the Old Testament prophets? Of this salvation, the prophets inquired and searched carefully. who prophesied of the grace that would come to you, New Testament believers, searching out what manner or of what time the Spirit of Christ who was in them, indicating when he testified beforehand of the suffering of Christ and the glories that would follow. Who in the Old Testament, other than Isaiah, speaks more often of the sufferings, death, burial, descent into Hades, and resurrection and ascension of Christ other than David? What a stupid statement and an insane indicator of the insanity of Roman Catholicism to have this professor say that David didn't worship Christ. That blows my mind. Does this not prove to you people the blindness that you get in Roman Catholicism for these professors and academics to deny fundamental New Testament theology, to rescue the papal nonsense system, to deny that it was, well, it was the Spirit of Christ in him, but they didn't know that it was him. Oh, you mean when Jesus says, Abraham saw my day and believed in me? But he didn't know. Are you serious? So you can have a meal, as Abraham does, with Jesus, and you don't know? So Abraham doesn't know who he's eating with and talking to and conversing with, calling him Lord, worshiping him at the meal. Moses goes up on the mountain. The elders with him, they have a meal with Jesus on Mount Sinai, but they don't know who it is. We don't know. We're just eating. Paul identifies. This is driving me crazy. Paul says that when Moses went up on the mountain, he saw Christ face to face in 2 Corinthians 3. Oh, but he didn't know. He gets glorified, comes down with the uncreated light shining off of his face, but he didn't know who he was talking to. Even though Jesus says, Moses wrote about me in John 5. This is crazy. And have you not noticed the stupidity and blindness of Sam Shamoun? Going back on all of this that he's argued for 20 plus years against Muslims, and now he's defending this idiocy of the papal cult and saying, no, the Old Testament saints, and we all worship the same generic unity God, and blah, blah, they just have a partial picture and they don't have the full idea. And well, which one is it? Is Allah a demon? Or is it them all? Well, they unknowingly worship the Trinity. You don't unknowingly worship the Trinity. It's like, again, 1 John. If you deny the Son, do you still have the Father? Does Jesus say to the Unitarian Pharisees, I asked Tim Gordon this in a debate. Does Jesus say that the Unitarian Pharisees love, honor, and adore the one God? Oh, did you remember? Did you hear? And he breezed right past it when I mentioned it. Tim admitted they don't. Remember that? No, they don't love and adore the Father. Oh, really? What does Jesus say in John 8:19? You neither know me nor my Father. Unitarian unbelieving Jews don't know God the Father. Right there. Yeah, but they have an abstract conceptual knowledge of him. Yeah, but where does that get you? It's not worshiping, it's not adoring. Jesus literally says all the Psalms are about him. Exactly. Because it's the Spirit of Christ speaking through David in the Psalms to predict his sufferings. 1 Peter 1. This is going to be interesting tomorrow because I didn't realize that we had... I was actually expecting a lot more, especially from Dr. Trent. I don't know much about him, but I guess this is what happens when you are an academic and you don't really care what the Scriptures say. And by the way, that's not Protestant. If you think it is, you got problems. Jay Dyer, what's up?